This, let me just make, yeah, so let me just make a note about how this session is going to be organized and how it compares to other ones. So some of you who are here today may have also been present at a session that I ran a week ago for the general market. It wasn't specifically for the PhD candidates and graduate students in India. But if you went to the session last week, you'll recognize there's quite a bit of overlap between what I was talking about last week and this week. But this week today is for the Indian candidates and graduate students, and so I'll try to be tailoring it in that respect. And actually, in this session, I'm going to go over the basic features and functions of econ job market so that you can see how to register and work through that system. And one of the themes that will be pervading this is that the market for economists is a worldwide market, but it also has important regional kind of submarkets. Whoops, what did I just do there? Sorry. Regional submarkets. And the Indian market is one that is developing. And we want to tailor the system and give as much support as we can to those of you from India, working in India, and you're looking for jobs in India, but at the same time want to help to connect you better to the worldwide market. And so some of what I'll be talking about is kind of a reflection on how the world market goes and what maybe opportunities might be for you to be connected to that world market. In particular, the economics job market sort of in the United States and in sort of North America, and also in Europe, which are the strongest two regional segments of the worldwide job market. Okay, so this overview will go through the following things. First, I'll talk a little bit about the nature of the academic job market, and then review the stages of the market, what happens when. Third, we'll talk about what candidates should be doing now. So again, some of you may not be candidates on the job market this year. You're just visiting today to learn more how the market goes so that in the future, maybe next year or the year after, when you're on the job market, you'll be very well prepared. And so you can kind of get a sense of what the timing will be in future years. And for those candidates who are on the job market now, of course, I'll be trying to impress upon you what you should be working on at this moment in the market process. Then I'll transition to talk about the functions of econ job market, the system that we have developed for recruiters and candidates and folks who write letters of recommendation to interact and exchange information for the best possible matching process in the economics job market. And then the last item is the advice part, and there it's sort of open-ended. I might take some of the questions that came up a week ago in the other session and just kind of give you some general advice and answers to those kinds of questions. And there's where you're welcome to raise your hand and ask about any particular aspect of the market for general advice. By the way, if you want to interrupt me at any time during this presentation, feel free to do so. Maybe the simplest thing is to raise your hand and we'll see it, and then I can click on you and or address you and you can ask a question. But certainly if there's something I'm saying here that's not making sense, or you could use a little bit more information about it, I'm happy to have a conversation as we go along. Okay, so let's start with the nature of the academic job market. So it's sure you all understand, otherwise you wouldn't be here, that the economics job market is a matching process for the employment of PhD economists. Now, traditionally, the when you say economics, academic job market, we're talking about folks who have PhDs, and so that is to say, there are lots of graduate schools all across the world producing new PhD economists, and then we have lots of jobs across the world at, say, universities. There are jobs at colleges, government agencies. There are consulting firms. There are corporations in various industries, think tanks, all sorts of different kinds of employers who are employing economists who have completed a PhD degree. But increasingly as well, there are other kinds of jobs that are coming up that are where a centralized process as facilitated by Econ Job Market may be useful. And those are jobs that maybe are for, say, research assistants who haven't yet received their PhDs or aren't perhaps not going to obtain a PhD. They maybe are people who have already after a degree who are offering their services for research assistance. And this market, you can think of as being a little bit more broad in some sense, because it can include, let's say, pre-docs, folks who have not gotten their PhD yet, haven't even entered a PhD program yet, for example, and those who have already graduated and got a PhD. And increasingly, there's jobs that are being posted on Econ Job Market and on other platforms that will sort of employ people who not necessarily have PhDs, but are not employed for, say, a permanent position, but for temporary employment to work on a project. So you'll see some of that in Econ Job Market as well. So Econ Job Market is the platform for facilitating the exchange of this information. So what we do is you'll see on the website, there are job advertisements, which when a recruiter, university, college, consulting firm, corporation wants to hire someone for a position, they will post their job on Econ Job Market, and they will, in some instances, collect applications through Econ Job Market. That's actually one of the main reasons why we founded Econ Job Market, to centralize the transmission of letters of recommendation and other application materials directly through the one site to make it the most efficient that we could possibly get it to be. So we encourage, of course, recruiters to not just post their jobs, but also to use Econ Job Market to collect applications and letters of recommendation. And so we do have applications and letters flowing through, but also increasingly we're trying to develop in the system some information channels to give you information about the state of the market, the status of the job searches, and things like that. Shruti, did you have a question?
Yes, sir. So my question is regarding letters of recommendation. So, sir, through this platform, Econ Job Market, I mean, how are letters of recommendation being exchanged? Do the people know each other, or anyone can write a letter of recommendation for us?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about letters as we get toward the segment that has to do with how the system works. But a quick comment on that now is that in general, anybody if you're a candidate, anybody who you designate to be what we call a recommender can submit a letter on your behalf. However, so it could be an advisor, and maybe your dissertation advisor if you're a job market candidate who's a graduate student currently, and you're finishing your PhD. It could be somebody else, maybe someone that you worked with in, maybe you had a job at a company at some point, and you're getting a letter of recommendation from a former employer. These kinds of, a different kind of recommenders are certainly possible. You can request recommender accounts in the system for anyone. However, we do um, verify the identity of each recommender in the system, so we can uh, stop any sort of fraudulent activity from taking place. So every recommender has to be verified as to that person's identity. Um, so I'll get to that in a little bit more detail a little later. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Thank you. So
Mhm.
basically, only known people can give us recommendation. We can, someone
Yeah,
we've worked with or someone we know.
we
They
have to
can,
have some way. Yeah, we have to have some way to verify the person's identity.
yes, thank you.
Mhm. Okay, so Econ Job Market is one platform. You'll see there are some other platforms. The American Economic Association has a platform for the job market as well. There's a couple of other ones, Interfolio and Academic Jobs Online are two other systems that process applications to some extent, or have a place where advertisements come out. But you can be pretty safe if there's an ad out there for a job. It's probably going to be posted on Econ Job Market or the American Economic Association site. So we recommend that you search the major sites whenever when you're on the job market. You keep an eye on the Econ Job Market website to see what ads are being posted, and you do the same for the other platforms so that you can catch any job advertisement that is coming along. So like this is the Econ Job Market website, and you can see their featured postings at the top, and then we can list the regular postings, and you can see lots of different jobs that have been advertised on Econ Job Market. Uh, the the search features allow you to look up the organizations. You can look by country to find jobs that are in categories of interest for you. Okay, now the second part is about the stages of the job market. So I want to make sure everybody understands how this works. Where this is something that maybe for those of you who are in graduate school, haven't gone on the job market yet, you might uh, not understand what the different aspects or stages of the market are. And so let me try to go through it with you now. So the sort of roughly in terms of timing, the first thing that happens on Econ Job Market and in other platforms is recruiters will advertise jobs. So, for example, you'll notice on Econ Job Market, now we have a lot of jobs that are posted. There are, if we were to look at it 2 months ago, we would have jobs posted, or 3 months ago, jobs posted. There's always some jobs being posted year round, but the market sort of is more concentrated in the late fall and winter, so that you'll find a lot of you'll find a lot more jobs being posted in the months of October and November and thereabouts than you will at other times of the year. And that's because a lot of recruiters, like in particular universities, have a season for when they can do their hiring. And because of the academic schedule, most, of course, universities and colleges are on a schedule of an academic year that starts in July and ends in June. Their recruitment efforts usually take place, starting at the beginning of the academic year when these organizations get authorization, from the administrations to post jobs. And so that happens, a few months after the academic year starts, usually something like September and October. And then they have authority, from their administrations to interview candidates a little later and to make offers a little later. And so for those types of organizations, the job market kind of starts in the middle or early fall, and it gets to the point where they have most of their application deadlines in November, or generally around that time. Maybe some are in October, some in November, some December. And then they get their interviews and second round interviews and making offers into the January, February, March time. So that's typical for universities and colleges, but it's not all true for every type of organization. If you look at some, say, commercial firms like Amazon or Google or YouTube, they will make offers any time of the year because they're not sort of set to the academic schedule, the academic calendar, excuse me. They are free to and have recruitment taking place at any time, and so you'll see that sometimes in May, there'll be some new jobs available that are posted by those kinds of companies in particular. So the academic job market is a year-round market, but for many types of jobs, it's concentrated in the mid to late fall and winter period. Okay, so just roughly, September through March. All right, so recruiters advertise jobs on the Econ Job Market platform and on the AA's platform and other platforms. And candidates then are going to be preparing application materials. Now, this is, for you, the sort of major part of the process, because you don't really want to be on the job market, of course, unless you're prepared and you have all the right materials that are required by the organizations to whom you're going to apply. And that typically means having a detailed CV, curriculum vitae, or otherwise a resume, and having a number of other documents, the major one being some sort of demonstration of your research, which is in the form of a job market paper, typically it's called. And so, for example, if you're a PhD student, working on finishing your PhD degree, of course you have a dissertation that you're writing, and the major part of that dissertation you would take as your job market paper. That becomes that becomes your primary demonstration of research and writing ability. Sometimes candidates, or many times candidates, have other papers that they've written. They have statements about their research. They have statements about their teaching approach to teaching. They have documents that provide the record of their success as instructors, teaching evaluations, for example, and other documents, including cover letters and things like this that the candidates want to submit with applications. So all of that collectively, I'll call an application packet. And that whole set of documents is something that is required to submit an application. And so candidates need to prepare these application packets and polish them and make that demonstration of ability as strong and accurate as possible. Now, candidates, as they're doing this, should be coordinating with their advisors. So if you're a PhD student, you'll have a dissertation advisor, and to the extent possible, of course, you want to be working with your advisor. Your advisor should not only be helping you to, giving you advice as to how to complete your dissertation and providing input in that regard, but also should be giving you general advice about how to approach the market, what sorts of aspects of your career, or your history, or your teaching, your research should be highlighted on the job market, how you should position yourself in terms of what field of interest that you work on, and so on. And so coordinating with the advisor is very important in my view. Additionally, you'll have other folks, not just your, say, dissertation advisor, but other folks, people on your dissertation committee, people that you've worked with, who would be good in a good position to write letters of recommendation, that is reference letters. And so you should be coordinating with them as well to first of all identify who will be willing to serve as a recommender for you, and to also to coordinate on the deadlines for applications so that their letters can be submitted at the appropriate time. So then after candidates come up with their job application packets and prepare these, they'll be submitting applications, in some cases through Econ Job Market, and in other cases through other recruitment platforms. Recommenders at the same time, or roughly thereabouts, will be submitting their letters of recommendation. Now, I just want to make a point here about what the form of letters is typically in the job market. It's, with very rare exceptions, the letters are viewed as confidential, which of course means that the letters are submitted in a way where the candidates do not see the letters, and the candidate would never see the letter, but so the recommender is providing a recommendation directly to the recruiter that the candidate does not view. Now, the reason for confidential letters is, of course, that it encourages recommenders to be very honest and give an unvarnished description of the strengths of the candidate. And so this is the standard in the job market. And the Econ Job Market, for example, collects letters in this way. All letters are treated as confidential in the Econ Job Market system. The candidates do not see the letters, only the letters are just passed directly to the recruiters. Next, the recruiters evaluate the applications, and they start to schedule interviews. And think of the interview process as typically taking place in two phases. There's a first round of interviews, which generally are going to be remotely done in a lot of cases. Although for example, in the conference and job market meeting in India, there'll be an opportunity to have in-person interviews. And in some of the other meetings that take place in Europe, for example, in the United States, there are sometimes in-person interviews. And so in the first round, sometimes that happens. But increasingly, a lot of the interviews are being done remotely using Zoom or some other meeting system, remote meeting system. Then after the interviews take place, and the interviews typically, by the way, are short, maybe half hour, maybe 45 minutes, something like that. The recruiters will then schedule second round interviews after they evaluate the candidates again based on the interviews. Second round interviews we typically call flyouts, because in the second round, there's going to be a much more thorough interview process where a candidate will meet not just with for one interview in a half hour or 45 minutes, but will meet with a variety of people at the recruiting organization. And so these typically take place, in person. You go to the organization, the location of the organization that is interviewing you. You go through a number of interviews with individuals at that organization, and give a presentation, typically a research presentation that's based on the candidate's job market paper. Sorry, whoops, I'm trying to get the chat open here. Yeah, so let me just, I'm going to wait on I see a question has come up about, particular issue about deadlines and such. I'm going to wait on that and until I get to the end of this part of the presentation, and then we'll talk about some of those questions. But feel free to keep posting questions if you'd like. Okay, so then after the second round of interviews, which are these flyouts, very intensive days that candidates are visiting the recruiting organizations. Then the recruiters do another round of review and decide internally whether they want to make offers for jobs to any of the candidates they've interviewed. And that's the employment offer phase of the market. Now, as I said, in the academic job market here with universities and colleges, typically the first part here takes place in, September, October, something like that. That's around here. And then by the time we get to the end, it might be March, February, March, or even a little bit later. That's the kind of the cycle for the academic recruiters, the colleges and universities. As I mentioned, there are other recruiters who aren't wedded to that schedule, and so they might make offers at other times of the year and go through this process accordingly at other times of the year. Okay, so what should candidates do now is our next question. First of all, you should be finishing the preparation of your job market packets if you haven't already finished, because you're going to have to make applications immediately. As you can see, there are going to be deadlines in the system coming up very soon, or already some deadlines have passed. And so finishing your job market packets, polishing up the job market paper and the CV, et cetera, is something to be done immediately if you haven't already done it. And confirming those who are writing recommendation letters is something you have to do immediately as well to make sure you have your recommenders in line. It takes time to write a recommendation letter, a day or two of work really for anybody who's writing a recommendation letter. And so you may have to give people several weeks to work on those letters. Okay, then in Econ Job Market, you want to make sure you've created your Econ Job Market account. You've figured out who your recommenders are and you've selected them in the system. You'll start to upload documents in Econ Job Market, and you can really start to sort through the jobs that are posted and make sure that you have a list of which ones you're applying to, which ones are of interest to you that you haven't applied to yet, et cetera. And submitting those applications. Okay, so this is all the things that you're going to be doing in Econ Job Market at this stage. All right, so with that, let me turn to the functions of Econ Job Market and just go through with you how you set up your account and what sorts of steps you need to take to get to the point where you're going to be submitting applications. So this again is the Econ Job Market system here. You can see that there's a login register a link here on the right near the top. And so I'm going to go through the process with you now pretty quickly. Since this meeting is being recorded, I'm going to go quickly, and people, I guess, can watch later if they have any questions. And we'll see all the different steps that you need to go through. By the way, in Econ Job Market, there's also extra information in various places about how to navigate the system. There's in particular some videos that you can find. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm going to go to the bottom of the page. There's informational videos here under the user support section and the frequently asked questions that answer questions about how to enroll and how to submit applications and things like that. So for the informational videos, for example, you'll see there's an overview of recommenders. There's a how to select recommenders, and then there's some for recruiters as well that don't pertain to you. Okay, so let me go through the system now quickly from the point of view of a candidate. So the first thing you want to do is create an Econ Job Market account. And so if you start at the web page, you can see the login register here on the right. And you click on that and you'll get a login prompt. If you already have an account, of course, you would just log in here by entering your email address and your password. If you don't have an account yet, then you will be registering for an account. By the way, if when you register, you might find that the system tells you that somebody else already has an account in the same name, because we make sure that we're tracking and maintaining accounts and making sure that people who have accounts have entered the correct information about themselves. And so if there's a case where you're being stopped in the registration process because somebody else has a name that's the same, there'll be instructions as to what to do. And you can always start here by clicking on, in that case, problems registering and go through a few steps to make sure that that you can register. In some cases, it creates a support request, and somebody who works in the system will help you to work through that. So once you do that registration, there's a registration form and all that you need to go through. And then you'll have an account at Econ Job Market. It's a free process. There's no charge for any candidate in the system. And then you get to a page like this where you have to then you have an account, but the account is just a generic account in Econ Job Market. You'll need to then create an applicant profile by signing up as an applicant. So you will click on that link here to sign up as an account, as an applicant. And then when you're logged in, you'll see that you have a role of being an applicant. As you use this system over the years, you will have multiple roles typically. For example, Dr. Garg has a candidate role currently from her role of being on the job market last year. But pretty soon, maybe she'll write a letter of recommendation for somebody, and then she'll also have the role of a recommender in the system. So there'll be multiple roles for her as an example. All right, so you're going to sign up as an applicant, as I mentioned. And then you'll want to complete the bio form that has to do with the application, sorry, as an applicant profile. And so that bio form has a variety of fields in it that you have to fill out. I've just got a demonstration of this for somebody in the system, so I've obscured the person's name. But you'll see for maybe this is your name here, and then your email address that you've just signed up for in the system. You're going to be selecting a primary field of research. Maybe that's labor economics or international economics or development economics, whatever it happens to be. There'll be other fields maybe that you'll select. You tell whether you're a student currently, what degree you're working on, when you started and will complete your degree, and so on. You'll have a phone number, whether you're seeking a position currently, whether you are willing to have member institutions who are participating in the Econ Job Market contact you, and that's a way to just give us permission to make your contact information available to any recruiter in the EJM system that is enrolled, not just those to whom you've submitted applications. There's some other information like ethnicity and gender optional questions that you can answer. Okay, and then once you've submitted that form and you're now enrolled as an applicant, you'll find that when you log in, you have a page that is looking like the one I'm showing you. And you can see that there's in the upper menu bar here, a link to the applications that you've submitted. There's a link for to process and set recommenders for your applications. There's a place where you're uploading documents for your applications. There's a page for listing what kinds of positions that the job postings that you've saved and had notifications that you'll get. And then our system also facilitates interviews. And so once we get to that point in the process, there'll be interviews that have been scheduled through the system that you can access there. That is, the calendar of interviews will be accessed by that interview link. Okay, so like in this case, you haven't submitted a job actually, you haven't submitted an application yet, you haven't uploaded documents or anything yet, but that's where your landing page, what your landing page will look like. All right, then the next thing you could do is to select or request recommenders. And so if you click on recommenders here, when you're logged in, you will get to a page where you can start to specify who your recommenders are. So maybe you're a candidate on the job market as a PhD student, you're finishing your PhD work right now. You have a dissertation advisor who will serve as a recommender. Maybe you have others on your dissertation committee who will serve as recommenders. You will go through the process of selecting each of them in the system. And it's a pretty simple process. So for example, let's say you're talking about your dissertation advisor, you'll enter that person's name in this form, and there are always instructions to guide you through the process. And in this case, there's that video I talked about before. You can click on that, and that'll go through the process as well. So I'm not going through all the details now, but you'll just type in the name of the person who you want to serve as your recommender, or one of your recommenders. And this form will then, when you submit it, check in the Econ job market system to see whether that person is already in the system. And so in a lot of cases, perhaps most cases, your recommenders will already be in the Econ job market system because they have used the system before to submit letters for other candidates, or they were on the job market at some point and they used the system for that purpose, or they are recruiters in their universities who are responsible for posting ads, and so they have Econ job market accounts for that purpose. And so that process can be somewhat involved depending on whether the person is in the system or not. And as I mentioned before, there's a verification process. So every recommender in the system has had that person's identity verified, and the identity is verified by an individual, by a person. And so when you are submitting a recommender request for somebody to be added to the system, if that person does not have an account already in Econ Job Market with the recommender role, you'll have to provide information that helps us to verify the identity of the person. And that is going to be through some sort of website that shows that person's name and that person is affiliated with the organization that you're saying the person is affiliated with. And that way we will then be able to check. We do it visibly by checking websites to make sure that the person is a real person and is who you say they are. The process involves you having to enter the person's email address as well if it's a new person to be added to the system. And you always want to add, you have to identify the person by that person's own personal email address that's affiliated with the institution, the organization that you're saying the person's affiliated with. So for example, if you have a recommender who's, let's say me, and I'm not in the system yet, you'll be typing my name in there, you'll be requesting me as a recommender to be added to the Econ job market system, and you'll specify in that the URL to my webpage or the webpage at my university that shows my name and my identity as a professor, and my own UCSD in this example email address, which is how that verification can also be taking place and how I can be contacted. You do not put the email address of that person's staff associate or secretary or other sort of general email address. It's got to be the email address of the actual person. Okay, so another thing you'll do then is to upload documents.
Joel,
Yep.
there is a question saying that what if there's less recommenders than asked in the portal, or there's no recommender at all?
Yeah, okay, so in some cases, so when you submit applications, you'll see that there's a requirement for each job posting of how many letters need to be submitted for that application. So typically, say in the academic job market, it would be for a junior position, maybe it would be 3 letters of recommendation. Then that means you have to specify at least 3 people who will, you go through this process of identifying 3 people, who are going to write letters on your behalf and submit them. If you do not have 3 people who you would serve as recommenders, then it's you're not, and so you're not submitting as many letters as the recruiter's requesting. Well, that could be an issue, but you'll have to contact the recruiter to ask whether or not they will even accept your application without the required number of letters. In some cases, you might have more letter writers and more recommenders than is required by the recruiter. It's like the recruiter may say, we require at least 3 letters. You might have 4 recommenders who are going to write letters, or 5. That's fine. It's at your discretion if you want to add more recommenders than is required by the recruiters. Econ job market is just the middleman, the system that is being used to transmit these letters. We leave it to you and to the recruiters to specify how many letters and how you're going to do those. Sorry, how many recommenders you're going to provide for your applications. And I see there's more questions that have come up. So the nature of the letters of recommendation is specific to the institution applying to or the general signaling for an applicant, irrespective of the institution. Yeah, so that question that came up from Mishra, that's a good question. So the letters of recommendation system here in Econ job market is not a signaling system. It's meant to simply facilitate the transmission of the letters of recommendation. So you should view it as a way to make it efficient for those who are writing letters to submit the letters as required by the organizations that are recruiting. So as I said, the recruiters might specify 3 letters are required. You as a candidate will specify who your recommenders are, and you're going to pick at least 3 people in order to satisfy the requirements of the application process. You're going to specify 3 people for to serve as recommenders. Then they will use the system to upload their letters. It's not meant to be a system where by just writing down the names of these people you're signaling something. No, this is a function for to facilitate the actual transmission of the letters. Okay, another question from Abhishek. Also, why do we need to request a recommendation unless the recruiter shortlists you, at least for the first round? Yeah, so it depends on the recruiter. You'll notice in some of the job postings, the recruiter might say, we don't require any letters of recommendation. In others, and actually in the most cases, they will require letters for the initial application. And this is just the way the recruiters are doing it, and it's become standard in the profession to have letters submitted in the first round, for the first round process. So when there'll be a deadline for an application, an application deadline for a particular job. Let's say that application deadline is November 30th. then that means that the recruiter wants you to submit your application by November 30th, and they want letters of recommendation to be submitted along with that application. And so if they want 3 letters, for example, you'll specify the names of 3 people who will, who are in the system or you're requesting will be added to the system to submit letters on your behalf. And those 3 people will then log in or they'll specify a staff person to do it for them. They'll log in and upload their letters of recommendation. Those letters go directly to the recruiting organization. They don't go to you at all. And you'll just see in the system a marker that the letters have been submitted or have not been submitted. So you'll know what the status of your application is. But that is a very typical case. Most recruiters ask for the letters to be submitted in the initial phase. So when at the deadline or by the deadline, they want to see those letters in addition to your applications, because they use the letters as part of the initial review. Before they even decide on first round interviews, they look at the letters to sort through the candidates. That's typical. Okay, so let me go on quickly to the uploading of documents. There's, in the system here, you'll notice, as I mentioned before, there's a document link. It's a good place to kind of get yourself organized is to go through to the uploading process for your documents. And then when you click on that, you're taken to a page like this, which shows the documents that you've uploaded. In this case, we don't have any documents yet. If you're going to upload a new document, you will be selecting what type it is. So in this case, you see I might select job market paper. There's a variety of other types of documents, a curriculum vitae, an essay, a cover letter, things like that. You can start by uploading your curriculum vitae and your job market paper, because you know that most job postings will require at least those elements in the application packet. Okay, so as you go through the process of uploading documents, you're going to be ready to then start to explore the job postings and make applications. And so here, you can click on the job postings link, and you can start to sort through what's available. And so here, this is just a sample from a previous period. But as I mentioned before, you've got all the listings of the jobs, and you can sort through them in various ways. You can save ones, and then like for example, if I click there, I will it'll bring up the positions that I've saved, ones that I think are of interest to me. There's a way to map the positions, so you can see where they are located in the world. There's a way to download the data as a CSV file, for example. So you have you can put it into a spreadsheet and have a list of all the positions that you're interested in or the ones that you've applied to, and you can then, I think that'll facilitate your whole process of sorting and providing information to the recruiters as needed. There's also, you can see different dates associated with each advertisement. So the date that the ad opened, that's the date the ad first appears. And then the critical one is the deadline for applications, which you can see. Now this is a prior year I'm showing you. These aren't current job postings. In some cases, you'll see a target date for applications. And so that's a type of thing that we've added in to allow recruiters to tell you basically when they're hoping that you'll provide your applications, because they want to start reviewing those applications before their deadline. And so they might say, well, our official deadline is December 30th, but we would like, we're going to do a first round of evaluation of candidates on December 1st. And so a target date for applications might be November 30th. And that would be something to keep in mind. If you can make the target date, then you know that you'll be included in the first round of the review process at that recruiter. Okay, and then you can start to submit applications. So as you can see in the system, like here's some ads that are here. You can click on Apply Now. and begin the application process. The application process is very simple. You'll be taken to a form for the ad that the recruiter has designed, which is the form that collects all the information the recruiter is requesting from you. And that would include like the documents, CV, job market paper, and such. And also the recruiter may have questions that need to be answered about the application. And there'll be a form for that in each application as you go through that process. And so here's like just a generic demonstration of that. The form says at the top, here's what the status of this application is. Maybe if you just started, of course, the status will be it is not submitted yet because you haven't provided all the information. And this one, it says you have to select 3 recommenders, you have to load 3 required files, and 1 required question. And you can see what the form shows. It shows what the advertisement is. I could click on that to get all the text of the ad. There's your contact information, the place where your recommenders will show up. If there are 3 required recommenders, then you'll be clicking here to select them or add them to the application. There's a place where you're going to be specifying which documents that you've uploaded previously you're going to use for this particular application. And so when you click on a document to include in the application, it shows a list of your currently uploaded documents. So if you uploaded those documents earlier, they'll be appearing here on this list, and you can select them for your application. And then, in this case, there was an additional question that the recruiter is asking, what is the title of your job market paper? And so you would be including that in the application. All right, so you can go through this process to apply for a job, and you can make as many applications as you'd like, of course, in the system. Once you've uploaded your documents that you're going to be using for the applications, and you've selected recommenders, and those have been approved, so they're on your list of approved recommenders, then it's very easy to submit applications, because in each of those cases, when you have that form, the documents will already be in there. You can just select them for the application. You select the recommenders for that particular application. You answer any other questions that are being asked, and the application will be submitted. I should mention also that, let me go back for a second here just to show you. When you are logged in, then they'll be shown, that there's not shown in this particular example, but once you've submitted applications, you'll see the list of applications that you've submitted to, and you'll be able to see whether they're complete or whether there's some missing information. So in most cases, if you've submitted all the documents yourself that are needed, what you'll be interested in checking on is just whether the recommenders have submitted their letters. And so you'll be able to see in the system whether the letters have been submitted already. If you won't see the letter, of course, but you'll see an indication of how many letters have been submitted for each application. So you'll know at what point that application is complete in terms of letters. Now, if there's a deadline, like let's say there's a deadline of November 5th for a job posting, and you submit all of your information by November 5th, but maybe 1 or more of your recommenders have not submitted their letters by November 5th, still your application will be viewable by the recruiter. The recommenders might submit their letters a little late, but at least your application will be complete on your part, for your part, and the recruiter will then see that application. So sometimes the folks who are writing letters of recommendation are delayed, and you'll want to coordinate directly with them, communicate with them to make sure that they're writing their letters. But as long as you do your part of the process, then your application will be viewed complete in terms of being able to be viewed by the recruiter. Okay, now just another note. As you go through this process, you're going to want to stay informed about the job market. You're going to want to monitor the status of applications and always be looking for more job postings, because as I mentioned before, job postings can come in any time. Although they're concentrated at this point in the year, you'll see new ads coming on every week for all year round for the job market. And so you should just keep checking in with Econ Job Market and the other platforms to make sure that you're finding any ads that would be of interest to yourself. You can follow your Twitter or now X account, and where Econ Job Market will post the new job openings get posted to Twitter, and you can if you want to use that type of social media to be notified of new job postings, that's fine. So then you'll need to follow EJM in that platform. And then, of course, look at other resources on Econ Job Market. As I mentioned, there's on the information link, and at the bottom, you'll find links to the informational videos. And if you click on the information link here, there are videos that I think you'll be very interested in. These are informational discussions that we've had in previous years with specific types of recruiters and prior candidates in the job market. And so you'll see in those videos an overview of what they're looking for in job market candidates and what the process is. So, for example, we had an interview with three different people on November 12th, 2021 about some different kind of public sector employers. There was a Federal Reserve in the United States, Justice Department, and so on, and they were discussing, what the process is for them. And there are several other informational videos that we've produced that you can look at as well. On the information, if you click on market stats in the information section, you'll be taken to a page where it give you some overview of what the market looks like. And actually, I can show you what some of these things look like from the last week or so. So there's a depiction of how many people are registered as candidates. There's a depiction of how many job advertisements have been posted on EJM. You can see, a listing of the different fields of specialty, and over the years, how many candidates have been have obtained accounts at Econ Job Market by field. So you can see whether, in your field, are there more people in this market now than there were before, and et cetera. Okay, there was a question here from Pragati. Let's see here. If the application has been submitted by a candidate on EJM, but the letter has not been submitted by a referee before the application deadline, is the submitted application considered rejected? So Econ Job Market passes the information to the recruiter, okay? And the recruiter has to decide what to do with it, because it's the recruiter's policy that governs what the recruiter will do. I can say that for many types of recruiters, if there's a missing letter by the deadline, that doesn't disqualify the candidate. So typically you'll still be reviewed by the recruiter, and because recruiters know that it's not the candidate's fault, for example, if a letter is late, typically. And so they will often just go through the regular review process with applications, even if letters are not all submitted. But if you want to know, what the recruiters will do, you have to contact the recruiter directly about that. Econ Job Market does not, exclude these applications from the recruiters. It's the recruiter's policy that comes into play as to whether they evaluate that candidate. So just to be clear, again, in Econ Job Market, if you as the candidate have submitted all of your required information for an application, then it's considered complete from the point of view of the candidate. and that will be shown to the recruiter. That's going to be passed through to the recruiter. If there's letters that are required that have not been submitted yet, the recruiter has to decide whether to, in what cases to process the application. But the application from the candidate will be transmitted to the recruiter, so the recruiter will see that application. Okay. Let me just conclude here so that I can then take a few questions. As I know I'm past the hour, but I will stick around for a few questions now. Let me actually stop the, well, yeah, let me leave this on the screen in case we need to look at some other slides. But do we have some questions that are coming in? I mean, I've answered a few questions as we've gone through. Let me see on the chat. I've got another one to look at. So. Yeah, okay. So I think the major questions, yeah, had to do with how to handle recommenders. And so I can understand from the candidate's point of view, you might be a little nervous if the letters have not been submitted yet. Again, the recommenders are, have discretion to submit the letters, of course, themselves, and so they have the ultimate discretion as to when to submit those letters. And you would want to coordinate with them to let them know when your deadlines are so that they can get those letters in on time. But it's not your job to submit the letter, it's their job to submit the letter. Yeah, so the references get notified when they are selected as references, when they're selected as recommenders in the system. They are not notified automatically by EJM as to when those deadlines are. They can set a notification themselves in the system to be notified every time, for example, a candidate submits an application that requests a letter from them. And in that case, they will see what the deadline is for the letter. But generally speaking, they're not going to get notifications saying a deadline is coming up, or say how many applications you've submitted that have a deadline next week. They just see that they've been requested to submit a recommendation letter. They'll be told of the deadline of the first time that they get that notification. They'll be told of the deadline of that particular application that you've submitted. But it's up to them to determine whether they want to be notified, per application, or and once a week, or notified every time you submit an application. That they have control over what notifications they receive. But recognize recommenders are typically writing one letter for you, and they're submitting it for all your applications. And so what's important from your point of view is that they finish their one letter and they submit it through the system. And they do that early enough so that it will function for all of your applications. There's a way in the system for a recommender to specify when they submit a letter that it be used for every application that you submit, and it automatically be submitted. And so typically recommenders do that. They click on that function, and then they just upload the letter once, and they don't have to worry about it after that, because the letter is going to be used and it'll be automatically uploaded every time you submit an application. So you can point that out to your recommender. They'll certainly be interested in that function, and it works very well. And in typically the case, recommenders will submit a letter. They'll specify that auto delivery feature, and then they don't even log into the system after that very often, because the letter will be automatically submitted on there whenever you submit an application. And so once they've written their letter, it's usually a very smooth process after that. Okay, any questions in addition to the ones that are coming in the chat? I don't see any hands being raised, so maybe I did a fantastic job and it made all sense. But if maybe you'll wait and ask the questions of Dr. Garg, who can provide some more information about what it's been like as a candidate, going through this process.
Rahul, do you have a question?
No, it sounds like.
No. Okay, Joel, just before we move on to rugby, quickly related to what, the last question. So suppose, is there a way in which the candidate can send a reminder through the recommended letter writer through EJM? Is there a process
No, actually, so we've actually thought about this over the years, and we've gotten requests from candidates to have such a feature. We've talked with recommenders, and we over the years we went both ways on this, but then decided in the end that it was more efficient not to have such a feature, and the recommenders did not want us to have such a feature because they didn't want to have be bombarded with emails reminding them of things, because as I said, the recommender's job is pretty simple. They have to write the letter, and then they have to have it submitted, and typically they'll have it auto submitted once they've uploaded it into EJM. So they really have to just go in one time, submit the letter, and then specify the auto delivery. And so it doesn't help if we have if we're just reminding them in the econ job market system to write the letter. They know they have to write a letter, and so we encourage candidates to work with their advisors and to make sure they understand when the deadlines are, and so you should do that as a candidate. Talk to the folks who are writing letters for you. And I know you don't want to bother them. Sometimes they have important jobs and they're busy, but you can coordinate with them to tell them, here's which type of organizations I'm applying to, and here's when the letters are going to be needed, and you can remind them if need be, and they can specify in the system to be reminded if they want. But we don't have a way for you to click on something that it sends them a reminder every time you click on it. You have to do that directly to them.
Before you sort of your session ends, just one last question which has come up in the question box, which says that can a recommender have multiple letters so that it's sort of goes to different institution, different letters? Is that possible?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes. So when I said that the typical case is a recommender writes one letter, uploads it, and then specifies it for auto delivery for all of your applications. That is typical because in a lot of cases the recommenders will write just one letter, but the system allows them to write multiple letters for any specific candidate and to use different letters depending on the application. So for instance, they might write a letter that's geared toward a teaching type of position. They might write a different letter that's geared toward a position in industry. And so if they have that total flexibility in the system, then they're going to upload those letters. And then when you submit applications, they will decide which letter goes to which application. And so that requires them, of course, to be in the system, logging in periodically to do that. It's not a problem. And some recommenders do that, and because they want to write, individually tailored letters for different kinds of applications, for different kinds of recruiters, I should say.
Oh, great. So thank you, Joel. So I think, that sort of clarifies a lot of things for me, and I'm sure for the candidates also, potential candidates. Now I invite Dr. Raghavi Garg, who has been through this process last year and now sitting on the other side of the table, but she can share her experience, exactly how it went last year, and so that all of you can sort of get some first-hand information about the process from the candidate's point of view. Raghavi, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for calling me, and I hope I can answer some of the questions that the candidates might be experiencing. So not so long ago, in fact, last year I was on the other side, as Maushmi mentioned. So I will briefly go over the process, and some of this is already covered by Joel, but I think I'll go over some of them in more detail. So firstly, what is a standard application packet? This is what you need when you start applying. This is pretty standard for most of the applications. Firstly, you need a cover letter. So a cover letter describes who you are, where are you at, and typically it is more geared towards how are you fit for the position that you're applying. And typically it would be different for, say, an assistant professor position, which involves teaching, and compared to a postdoc position abroad, where most of the positions do not have any teaching requirements. So I would recommend that typically you would have different cover letters for different positions. Second is your CV. As Joel mentioned, it should be a little more detailed CV than your typical shorter CV that you have. Third is, I think, very important, which is the research statement. It is precisely the summary of your research, what you've done till now, what is your broad area of research, what are your interests, what are the projects you've worked on till now, what are the projects that are in the pipeline, and what are your future plans in terms of your research. Next is a teaching statement. So what a teaching statement is, so if you've done any TA positions during your PhD or you've taught any courses, you should mention them here. Also, briefly outline what your teaching philosophy is. It is typically a short one, and if you have teaching evaluations, it is helpful to attach those as well here. Next is the job market paper and other writing samples. So in the portal, I'll come to the job market paper later in more detail, but these are your chapters of your thesis that you have written till now in a format of a paper. And finally, the letter of recommendations. Mostly places require 3 letters, so I think it's a good idea to have to speak to at least 3 or 4 people in advance before you start applying, to let them know that you'll be on the market this year. This is like a standard application packet. This is what all the documents that you will need. Next, coming to the timeline of the Indian job market. So there are more or less 3 stages. The first stage is a short interview round. The second is the job market talk and a teaching talk. You may or may not have a teaching talk. And the final stage is where you have another interview. So in a stage 1, basically it's what do you want to expect in the short interview? Firstly, you're asked about your research interests. So where you outline your broad area of research interest. You go on, after that, you go on to describe your job market paper briefly. And if time permits, you can discuss your other papers as well, that you might have other chapters of your thesis. I would say that you need to prepare and, more importantly, practice a 15-minute spiel wherein you have everything at the top of your head. It's better to be prepared for it. Second question that comes up is about your teaching interests in a standard job market interview, wherein they would specifically ask you what subjects you can offer and at what level, at an undergraduate level or a graduate level. For those questions, you should have a course outline in mind, wherein you detail what topics you will cover, what reference material you will use, and all of that. This typically lasts for 30 minutes, wherein I say that you should prepare yourself for 15-20 minutes, and rest it goes how it flows. So they'll ask you questions in between, but try to come back to your spiel or the material you've prepared. This happens around 21st to 23rd December. And for in the previous year, it was centralized at the NCAER Center in Delhi. And few of the institutes also had online short interviews. So it depends from institute to institute. After this, based on this short round of interview, you will be called for a job market talk. This is mostly conducted in person, and it is the most important round of your job market process. After the first round, which happens in late December, this round happens in January or February, depending on how many candidates and how fast the applications are processed. So, I mean, the first thing is that you should choosing the job market paper for this. So I think a good idea is to choose a paper which reflects your skills the best. Also, if if you have multiple such papers, you could choose the one which fits the advertised position the best. So suppose you have papers in both theory and empirical field, and you think that that the position advertised is for a theoretical candidate, person who works in theory, then it's a good idea to put that as a job market paper for that position. Another question that I have been asked is whether you should go with a single author paper or a paper which is in collaboration with your advisor or other people. From what I have experienced in job market in India, most candidates do have papers in collaboration with their advisors. So, I mean, there is a trade-off here, I understand, because a single author paper reflects your independent capabilities in terms of a researcher, while that is not so obvious when you collaborate with your advisor or a senior faculty member. So that's a trade-off, and I think that's you should be able to take a call on that depending on the position. Finally, what the job market talk contains. So basically, it's more you will be called in the department who calls you for the job market talk, and it is attended by most of the faculty members in the department. So it is not specific to your. It is not the case that only people who are interested in your field would attend it. So it's a wide variety of people who attend this talk, and you need to prepare for almost an hour. So a good idea is that you motivate the paper well, in the sense because it will have audience who do not understand your area at all. So you should motivate the paper well so that people understand at least 20 to 25% of what you're doing. And for that, I think practice is the key. So the more you practice with your peers, with your advisor, with other people in the department, it is really helpful. Also, when you go to the department, there are, as Joel also mentioned, there are multiple. It's not just the job market talk. You also meet with other faculty members. This could be within the department, like the econ department, or if there's a school, social science school, or any other school of that sort, you will be asked to meet with one-on-one with people from other departments. So you should be able to talk about what you do in a more nuanced way, or in a way which is not loaded with jargons. So it's good to practice and prepare for that as well. You should know the department well, so to see if you are a good fit, and when you go and talk to the people there, it is helpful if you know about the department. Also, an additional tip which I found helpful was if you record yourself when you present, it helps you when you look at yourself while presenting. It helps you prepare better, and you're able to point out your own mistakes and learn from them before you actually go out and give the talk. In the final interview, so this varies depending on what kind of institute it is. Some institutes, most institutes do have this final round. For instance, the government institutes have a round with external examiners. So it consists of the dean, the HOD, and a few external examiners who are experts in different areas. In that case, you're asked more subject-related questions in terms of what you can teach. Even basic questions like what you did in your undergrad and all of those questions. If it is with just the higher management, which was the case with private universities, then you'll be asked to discuss your job market paper or your research, which will be not so formal, so in a more informal way so that people can understand. And also one question that comes up is what are your long-term objectives in terms of teaching, in terms of research, in terms of staying in the city? Are you willing to relocate, and all of those questions? Those come up in this final round of interview. Okay, so some addition. So this was what the process looks like. These are the different stages. The timeline, which ideally you should follow, is that obviously the earlier you are ready with your job market paper, it is better. You should target, I think, you should use your summer well and target that by July you have the paper ready, so that you can get feedback from multiple people, your supervisors and other people in the department. You should have the application packet ready by October. And when you do that, you should carefully draft your research statement. I feel it is very important because that is something which, if it's not well written, reflects badly on your application profile. And then after you're done with that, you start applying in October and November. As you can see, the deadlines are coming up now. It's a good idea to practice your job market talk. So you should, all the people who are on the market this year and plan to go to the market next year as well, you should present at different conferences, network with people, know the recruiters, know what they're looking for in a candidate. So it's obviously good if you have practiced it in front of people who are in your area during these conferences. Another thing is that I feel that you should apply to as many jobs as possible and not be selective at this point, and only choose when you have options in your hand. So it's a good idea to apply to places which you think or you might consider going to if you get selected. Also, as is common with PhD students from abroad, I think you should also have a website, your personal website, which you can link in your profile as well in your CV. It reflects good if you have a website of your own. Also, for Indian job market candidates, what I've observed is that if you have a publication, it is a credible signal that you have you know your area well and all of these things. So it adds to your profile a lot if you have a publication, even if it's not a requirement from the recruiter's point of view. Yeah, as you might have understood, that the job market is an exhausting process. It's a very long one. So I think you should take care of your health and health, both physical and mental, and because it does take a toll on you if you take a lot of stress about it. And also, I think you should not forget that it's not a one-shot game. So even if you get to the job market in 1 year, it takes a while to figure out which department you fit in the best. So it's not the end of the world if you miss some deadlines or get a job later in the cycle. So I think you should not stress a lot about this. Also, thank you, and I'm open to questions if you have any. I think it would be helpful if you ask me questions.
Wonderful, Rugby. I think that makes it very, very clear about what PhD candidates will have to do from their side, especially for the Indian market. Are there questions for Rugby? You can either raise your hand and then we'll call your name, or you can type it in the chat window.
Is this question for me? Ujjwal, do we have to mention teaching statement in the CV?
That came while you were speaking. So
yeah, no, you do not have to mention the teaching statement in the CV, but in the CV you can mention if you have any teaching experience, if you've TA'd or something, you can mention that in your CV.
all right, I don't see any hands raised, and I don't see anything. Oh, there's one for you. International conferences, does it matter to mention that? There's another question there. Oh, there are questions coming up now, Rugby.
Okay, sure. So mention of international conferences, I think it's good for your personal profile if you've attended international conferences, but I don't think it matters a lot in terms of your job market application. I'm not sure about that though.
And a couple of questions about.
Can you discuss more about the job market paper? What are the expectations? Can it be a chapter from your thesis? So the job market paper is basically something which you decide. So it mostly will be a chapter from your thesis because that's what you're working on. But I think it should be a more polished version of your chapter. It should look like a paper that you submit to a journal. So basically, the expectation is that when you submit, from a recruiter's point of view, I feel when you submit a paper as a job market paper, they think that this is the best you've put in your best effort in this paper, and this is the best you could do. So I think take some time and decide which one of your chapters would be a job market paper, and that's, I think, the expectation is that basically whatever you tell that your research interests are should get reflected in your job market paper. The job market paper need not be published. However, if any of your chapters are in an R&R or a published form, that's an advantage. But your job market does not mean that it needs to be a published paper. What do we mean by philosophy of teaching? What can be mentioned there? So it speaks to more of how would you conduct a class? What are your views on teaching? How important it is to you? So some institutes, for instance, in India, I can speak of Indian institutes, give a lot of weightage on teaching. So there they ask you, how would you cater to students who are from various backgrounds? both social and economic backgrounds, different who have never studied economics in their life. How would you cater to their questions? How would you pitch your course to students who are from different backgrounds? So a teaching philosophy is basically how would you basically conduct yourself as a teacher? So you need to mention briefly about what are your views on teaching, how important it is to you, if at all. And if you have any experiences as a teacher, you can mention that how did you overcome some of the challenges when you were conducting classes. So all of that can be mentioned. And in the teaching statement also, you need to mention if you have any course outline in mind, or if you've thought of teaching any course, you can mention that as well in your teaching statement. Do we mention our extracurricular activities as well in the CV? It's not typical to mention those, but you can mention in a line or so. You do not, I don't think you get any additional benefit from mentioning our extracurricular achievements. Regarding Indian job market, can we start applying for jobs before pre-submission seminar? And if offered job, within what time frame are we expected to defend thesis? So yes, you can apply to the Indian job market before your pre-submission seminar. And if offered job, within what time frame are we expected to defend the thesis? So basically, most institutes require you to have your degree, or after defense, obviously, before you join them. So mostly you should defend. So if most institutes would start their semester in July, not before that. Then you should be able to should have defended your thesis and have a degree before July. So you should target that. But even if there's a delay, institutes do take that into account, and you can join later in the semester as well. Few government institutes, for instance, have a separate form in which they do ask you what is your expected date of defense. So do keep that in mind, that you have some vague idea about when you want to defend in case you get a job.
Raghavi, I have a related
Yes.
question,
Yeah.
which is with this one, which is that, many of Indian institutes, even now will have the candidates will submit their thesis, and the idea of defense could be very different. For example, it will go to an external and the report will come and so on. So there's a gap between when they submit their thesis for to examiners and when the report comes. So there is no no defense the usual way. So usually from your experience last year, do you think that Indian recruiters will look at the profiles where the people have submitted their thesis and the report hasn't come yet? Usually, do you think that they do that? For example, IIT Kanpur, will they do that? Will they look at a candidate who has not got his degree yet, but in some sense, otherwise the process is complete? What happened? I think I lost Rugby, maybe. He probably has must be some problem with her net connection. I apologize to everyone. Just stay put for 5 minutes, and I'm sure she's going to reappear to answer your questions. Just give us 5 minutes.
I'm so sorry, I got dropped off.
Yeah. So we guessed. Yeah. So the quickly, just to go over that question. So do you think that somebody has submitted but hasn't got the report yet? But usually, do you think that people consider that, or it's that people should wait to go to the job market after they've got their degree?
So I think it depends from institute to institute how much time your externals take to review your thesis. So typically, I think you should plan your job market accordingly. But even if you think your report would be, you'll get your report by May, I think you should still apply to this year's job market if you expect your report to come by May 24. Because in that case, you can defend in May, June, and join by July or August. So in pre-submission seminar, I don't think it doesn't matter, but thesis and final defense does matter for most of the institutes. And I think all the questions that were there, I have those questions. Okay.
There's one question about minimum teaching requirement.
Is there a minimum year of teaching required to fit the job? No, there is not. you basically, it does count. So you have different grades based on your teaching experience, but it is not a requirement to apply to these institutes. Suppose I'm graduating in December 24, would it be a good idea to have the profile and application packet ready by October 24? Of course, I can join only after I defend the thesis. Yes, definitely. Yeah, you should definitely apply for the market next year then. What does institute looks out for most in an applicant? Research expertise or teaching ability? I think it varies from institute to institute, and it depends on how they've advertised their position, their requirement as well. So more often than not, institutes, the good institutes, give an equal weightage to both of them. So they would require you to have some inclination towards research, as well as they look for a good teacher as well. Some institutes do require you to give a teaching talk or conduct a class when they ask you to come for a job market talk. So those institutes, that definitely have more weightage or give a lot of importance to teaching. But most institutes look out for both when they hire. I think if not, I mean, you can make what is more important from their advertisement or the profile of the existing faculty. I mean, to be honest.
I think that's all that we have in the window right now. But thanks a lot, Ragvi. I think it's just, because we needed some perspective from Indian job market also, along with, what Joel said about the EJM, and that's, this was a perfect combination. Thank you so much. Joel had to leave, so he's left. Thank you very much for doing this. And to all the potential candidates, if you have any further question about the process, about how to go for what is IJME going forward, not this year, in the coming years also, do write to us, do write to our SERI address, and we'll get back to you. And thank you for attending once again. Thank you very much, Ragvi, for helping us.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And please feel free to write to me if you have any questions to all the candidates who are applying.
Thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to end the meeting now. Bye.